This was Beethoven's second attempt to write an overture for the opera Fidelio. It was originally called Leonora, which is why it's called the Leonora Overture. This is probably the most performed of the four overtures because it's basically a tone poem describing not only the protagonist in the opera, Leonora, who is called Fidelio when she puts on a male disguise to try to release her husband Florestan from imprisonment, but it describes her character, her bravery, and then final victory by the end of the overture. Now later on, he jettisoned the three overtures called Leonora, rewrote the opera, called it Fidelio, and then wrote a very short overture called the Overture to Fidelio. And that is the work that we begin the program with. It doesn't incorporate any of the themes from the opera like the other Leonora overtures did. It basically just is a description of anticipation of Florestan's release and her efforts to release him. It's more a sound portrait of her energy, and in a very few brief minutes we hear all of that in this overture. He's certainly better played and better known in England, from which he originally hailed, but he wrote a lot of music in sort of a pastoral feel. Not quite in the same vein as Vaughan Williams, but there's a certain lushness to his pastoral writing. If Debussy and Vaughan Williams got together and decided to write together, it might turn out like Delius. And Delius these days is mainly known for a series of very short little pieces like On Hearing the First Cuckoo in Spring or A Village Romeo and Juliet. The work we're going to play, which is all of 3 or 4 minutes, is called The Prelude to Ermelyn, and Ermelyn was a brief opera of Delius. Very beautiful, very pastoral and lyric. Now the two new works on the program are very new. The work called Shapeshifters was just written 5 years ago by a New York-born composer named Paul Lansky. Paul began his musical career mainly writing music for computer-generated sounds and electronic music. But I'd say over the last 10 years or so, he's been writing for more conventional human forces, live performers on stage. And this work called Shapeshifters was written for the piano duo who are going to appear on our concert as the soloists. Quattro mani, 4 hands. And their names are Susan Grace and Alice Ryback. To have a piano duet on stage is rather unusual, but to have them play not one but 2 works written in the 21st century is highly unusual. And the work that they will play at the very end of the program is written by the British composer Graham Fitkin, a very young man who wrote a piece called Circuit back in 2002 and 3. And basically, this is a 20-minute work without pause, and it's very percussive and lyric at the same time, and he has sort of a modern feel for writing contemporary rhythms and sounds. This sounds like it has a little bit of an element of rock and roll to it, and it certainly has a propulsive feel, and these pianists move the rhythms along in a very exciting way, and it's a perfect way to end this program.